Hi Photos subscribers. Today we're talking about Studio Strobes. And Studio Strobes, while they perform a lot of the same function as flashes that we were just recently talking about in a video, the Studio Strobes are meant to be a little bit more permanent of a structure. They are very easily movable, so the studio is not necessarily cramped up with one thing or another. But the Studio Strobe is not as portable and it's not as flexible in its use or power consumption as these little flashes are that are the hot shoe flashes attached to the top of your camera, or they can also be movable if you want to put them on tripods and have them shot from different locations around your shoot area. However, the important thing to realize with Studio Strobes is they're a lot more powerful. So that's one of the reasons why they have 110 access for power. They'll have a plug from the back of the unit into some sort of power source. And that being said, you'll be able to dial up the power from what you are shooting with a hot shoe flash, sometimes possibly in the range of 5 or 6 times the brightness as what that hot shoe flash was going to give you. Now, maybe you don't need that much power, and if you're lighting the subject that you have in frame well enough, you probably won't. But that's one of the reasons why we're talking about the different parts and pieces of exposure, so that when you do use the strobes or flashes, that you're able to use the amount of light that those strobes give without overloading your camera sensor and blowing, quote unquote, blowing something out because the light is too bright, or overpowering the light with the camera settings so that your object, subject, or whatever scene you're capturing is not lit enough. There's an interesting give and take with the 3 different settings that our cameras require to be able to get a good exposed photograph, but then there's also the amount of light that we are adding as artificial light, that we want to make sure that artificial light is actually lighting what we're looking at enough. So when you have your camera sensors dialed in, or camera sensor, your lens diaphragm aperture, and the sensor sensitivity all correctly set with the ISO, then we can have a well-established photograph with that added light. One of the best things to do is I have downloaded an exposure, what they call a, I just lost the word for it, but basically it allows your phone, when you download that app onto your phone, for your phone to be a evaluator for what the brightness of the light is for the object you're going to be imaging. So it'll tell you specifically what the rating should be on the aperture for your lens, what your ISO rating should be, how long your shutter should stay open, and if you want to set where one of those 3 values are going to remain, it'll tell you what the other 2 values should be. And that being said, that's called a light meter. So I downloaded an app for allowing my phone to become a light meter for my shots. And those work very well, and it helps you set the ratio if you want to learn how to set those ratios together very well. If you want to set it according to the f-stop, or the lens aperture, or if you want to set it according to ISO or shutter length for how long your shutter stays open, allowing your sensor to see the light in your scene, or whatever the case may be. If you want to learn how those ratios work and what numbers typically go together, it's going to change though. Please be aware, it will change according to the intensity of light in your scene. So whether you're adding light, or you have a shot set up to be lit by the sun or other things, ambient light in your area, be aware that the ratios of your ISO, your shutter speed, and your aperture will change according to how much light is in your scene. So all that being said, my editors tell me I use that phrase a lot, and I'm sure I do. I'm starting to hear it now. So with this information, it's important to know what your camera needs to be able to see, but also how those different technical pieces need to fit together. So I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you so much for listening and learning. I'm taking some stock in my head here as we are wrapping this up to see if there's anything I need to show you. But talking about Studio Strobes are very powerful and often are expensive. So if you're starting up a studio or if you're learning some studio equipment where you're playing around or learning or using photography, enjoy those, because the studio has spent a lot of money to have those on hand for you. But learn to use that strobe sparingly, in a sense, so that you're not overlighting your subject. But all that being said, with how you're learning to set up your camera sensitivity, if you're using something a little bit more manual and setting your 3 different technicals to be able to light your photograph and have it exposed properly, have fun with that. It's one of those technical skills that you will need to be able to set almost by muscle memory, as your brain is doing some calculations and figuring out how much light is in the shot that you have around you, and what your camera is going to need to see. If there's any added light from those modeling lamps or the strobes that you have going on, and how the strobe will brighten up in the moment that your camera tells it needs to shine the light brighter. So make sure that you add the light that you need and not overlight your subject. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, ring that notification bell so that you don't miss any other videos coming up. And if this video has helped you, please press the like button. Thanks, have a great day.